Travelers stumbled backward as the German shepherd lurched forward, his muscular frame straining every fiber of the leash. The navy blue hardshell suitcase sat perfectly still near gate 14, yet Max's reaction made it seem like something alive was trapped inside. His barks tore through the terminal, sharp, primal, unlike anything Officer Sarah Jenkins had heard in their 5 years together. Not for narcotics. Not for explosives. This was something else entirely. Max clawed desperately at the suitcase zipper, whining between barks, his whole body shaking with an urgency that bordered on panic. Sarah yanked hard on the leash, but the 80-pound shepherd refused to move, his claws scraping against the polished airport floor. Other officers sprinted over, voices raised, commanding everyone to step back. Passengers scooped up their children. Phones appeared, recording the chaos unfolding at gate 14. Back away from the bag. Sarah shouted to the crowd, her hand moving instinctively to her radio. We need bomb squad at gate 14 now. But Max wasn't sitting in his trained explosive alert position. He wasn't waiting for her command. He was tearing at the luggage like something inside was suffocating. His teeth scraped the hard shell. His nose jammed into every crack, sniffing frantically, whimpering with an emotion Sarah had never witnessed from her partner before. Terror. Whose bag is this? Sarah's voice cut through Max's frantic barking. Who owns this luggage? Nothing. Passengers exchanged bewildered looks. No one claimed it. Lieutenant Morris's voice crackled through his radio. We're evacuating the terminal. Jenkins, pull that dog back. Do not touch that bag until bomb squad arrives. Then Max lunged again, this time clamping his jaws on the zipper pull, wrenching it sideways with raw desperation. The metallic sound of teeth separating pierced through the commotion. And when Officer Sarah Jenkins finally looked inside that navy blue suitcase, she felt the air leave her lungs. What she discovered was more horrifying than any weapon, any drug shipment, any explosive device she'd encountered in 7 years on the force. Before we continue, make sure to hit like and subscribe. And honestly, I'm curious, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments. I love seeing how far these incredible stories reach. And stay with us, because what happens next will leave you absolutely speechless. The international terminal at Metropolitan Airport buzzed with its predictable Tuesday morning energy. Announcements echoed overhead in multiple languages while travelers dragged roller bags through security, juggling coffee cups and boarding passes. Morning sunlight poured through the massive floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long shadows across the endless stream of people heading toward their gates. Everything felt routine. Ordinary. Just another day. Officer Sarah Jenkins walked her usual patrol route with Max trotting confidently beside her, his K-9 service vest catching the fluorescent lights. Max, a 5-year-old German shepherd with intelligent eyes and razor-sharp instincts, had built a reputation throughout the airport police unit as one of the finest detection dogs in the state. His nose had uncovered smuggled narcotics worth millions, identified concealed weapons in carry-ons, and even detected trace explosives in checked luggage on 2 separate occasions. But more than his impressive training record, it was the unspoken bond between Sarah and Max that made them extraordinary. They communicated in a language beyond words. A subtle flick of his ear meant Max had caught something worth investigating. A relaxed tail wag meant all clear. 7 days a week, they moved through the crowded terminal as a single unit, protecting thousands of travelers who would never know their names. Quiet morning, Officer Daniels commented as he passed them near the baggage claim area. Almost too quiet. Sarah smiled. Don't jinx it. Last time you said that, we spent 6 hours processing that customs smuggling case. Daniels laughed, adjusting his duty belt. Fair point. I'll keep my mouth shut. Sarah continued her patrol, her trained eyes scanning the terminal with practiced efficiency. Families embracing near arrivals. Business travelers hunched over laptops. A young couple arguing quietly about a missed connection. Nothing unusual. Nothing that triggered the internal alarms she'd developed over years of service. Max walked calmly at her side, his nose occasionally lifting to sample the air currents. His tail swayed in that easy rhythm that signaled everything was normal. Just another Tuesday. Just another shift. Then Max stopped cold. His entire body went rigid. His ears shot forward like radar dishes. His nose tilted upward, nostrils flaring as he processed something Sarah's human senses couldn't detect. She felt the leash go taut in her hand. Max, what is it, boy? The German shepherd's head swiveled sharply toward the seating area near gate 14, his focus laser-locked on something in the distance. A navy blue hardshell suitcase sitting abandoned beside a row of black vinyl chairs. No owner nearby. No visible claim tag. No one watching it. Max's tail dropped instantly. His breathing changed. And then he pulled. Not the controlled, methodical pull of a trained detection dog following protocol. This was raw, desperate force. Max lunged toward that blue suitcase like every second mattered, nearly dragging Sarah off her feet. "Max, heel!" Sarah commanded, but he didn't respond. All his training, all his discipline, all those hours of conditioning gone. Overridden by something stronger than any command she could give. Sarah's alarm pierced the darkness at 5:47 a.m., the same time it had for the past 5 years. Before her eyes fully opened, she heard the familiar sound, Max's tail thumping against the hardwood floor beside her bed. He was already awake, already waiting, his internal clock as precise as hers. "Morning, partner," she whispered, reaching down to scratch behind his ears. Max's response was immediate, his cold nose pressing against her palm. No words needed. This was their language, built over countless pre-dawn mornings just like this one. Sarah swung her legs out of bed, and Max rose with her, shadowing her every movement as she headed to the kitchen. She filled his bowl with the same premium kibble the department provided for all K-9 units, watching as he waited patiently beside it. No lunging. No impatience. Just discipline. "Okay, Max." He ate with focused efficiency, while Sarah prepared her own breakfast. Black coffee and toast, nothing fancy. Through the kitchen window, dawn was just beginning to break over the city, painting the sky in shades of deep purple and orange. This was their sacred routine. The quiet hours before the chaos of the airport began. Before the crowds and announcements and endless stream of travelers. These moments belonged only to them. By 6:15, they were on the road. Max sat in his specially designed compartment in the back of Sarah's patrol vehicle, his vest already on, his eyes alert and focused. Sarah glanced at him in the rearview mirror. "Big day today, boy." Just like every day. Max's ears perked forward, acknowledging her voice. They'd been partners since Max was 8 weeks old. Sarah remembered the first time she'd held him. A tiny ball of fur with oversized paws and eyes that seemed far too intelligent for a puppy. The K-9 training coordinator had placed him in her arms and said, "This one's special. He's got something the others don't." He'd been right. Sarah had raised Max, trained him, lived with him. She'd taught him to detect 17 different narcotic scents, to identify explosive compounds, to track suspects through crowded spaces. But Max had taught her something more valuable. To trust instinct over procedure, to read the invisible signals that separated routine from danger. They'd logged over 10,000 hours together. Patrol shifts that bled into one another. Training sessions in vacant warehouses where Max learned to search for hidden packages. Certification tests where he performed flawlessly, earning commendations that lined Sarah's office wall. But it wasn't the awards that mattered. It was the trust. The unshakable bond that made them more than officer and dog. They were a unit. When Max's ear twitched, Sarah knew he'd caught something. When his tail dropped, she knew to prepare for action. Other officers called it the K-9 connection. Sarah called it sacred. As they pulled into the airport employee lot at 6:50, the terminal was just beginning to wake up. Early flights preparing for departure. Security lanes opening. The first wave of travelers trickling through automatic doors. Sarah clipped Max's leash and stepped out into the cool morning air. Max jumped down beside her, his body language relaxed but alert, ready for whatever the day would bring. "Let's go to work," Sarah said. Max's tail wagged once. Affirmative. Neither of them knew that in less than 2 hours, their sacred routine would be shattered forever. The terminal hummed with its usual Tuesday rhythm by the time Sarah and Max completed their first sweep of the concourse. Announcements echoed overhead. Coffee machines hissed at various kiosks. Travelers shuffled past in that half-awake daze of early morning flights. Sarah nodded to familiar faces as they walked. Maria at the newsstand. Carlos wiping down tables at the sandwich shop. The elderly janitor whose name she could never remember, but whose smile she recognized every shift. "Everything good today, Officer Jenkins?" Maria called out. "So far, so good," Sarah replied, guiding Max around a group of businessmen hunched over their phones. Max's pace was steady, controlled. His nose worked the air in that methodical way Sarah had watched thousands of times. Sample. Process. Move forward. Sample again. It was like watching a perfectly calibrated machine, except this machine had a heartbeat and trusted her with his life. They turned toward the B gates, passing the security checkpoint where TSA agents were already dealing with the morning rush. A family argued about removing shoes. A businessman's laptop triggered an additional screening. Normal chaos. Predictable problems. Sarah felt herself relax into the familiar pattern of the day. Then Max stopped. Not a gradual slowdown. Not a pause to investigate something interesting. He stopped dead in his tracks, his body going completely rigid as if someone had hit a switch. Sarah felt it immediately through the leash. That sudden transfer of tension from his body to hers. Max. His head turned slowly, deliberately, toward the seating area near gate 14. His ears shot forward, locked into position. His nostrils flared wide, pulling in deep draws of air. Processing something. Analyzing something. Sarah followed his gaze. Gate 14 looked like every other gate in the terminal. Rows of black vinyl chairs. A handful of passengers waiting for boarding announcements. The usual scatter of abandoned coffee cups and crumpled newspapers. Nothing out of place. Except for the suitcase. A navy blue hardshell suitcase sitting alone beside the third row of chairs. No owner hovering nearby. No claim tag visible from this distance. No one paying attention to it at all. Sarah's training kicked in automatically. Abandoned luggage. Potential security threat. Standard protocol. Observe, report, secure the area. But Max wasn't following standard protocol. His tail dropped low, almost tucking between his legs. His breathing changed, becoming rapid and shallow. And then came the sound Sarah had never heard from him before, a low, anxious whine that seemed to vibrate from deep in his chest. Max, what's wrong, boy? He pulled forward. Not the aggressive lunge that would come later, but an insistent, urgent pull. His eyes never left that blue suitcase. His whole body trembled with barely contained energy. Sarah's hand moved instinctively to her radio, but she hesitated. What would she report? Her dog was acting strange? That wouldn't trigger a terminal evacuation. That wouldn't mobilize the bomb squad. She needed more information. Max, sit. He didn't sit. He pulled harder, his claws clicking against the polished floor as he fought to move forward. Max, heel. Nothing. No response. 5 years of perfect obedience, and he was completely ignoring her commands. Sarah's stomach tightened. In all their time together, Max had never disobeyed a direct order. Never. Something was wrong. Something was very, very wrong. And that blue suitcase at gate 14 held the answer. Sarah made the decision in seconds. She couldn't ignore Max's behavior, and she couldn't leave the bag unattended. She keyed her radio. Dispatch, this is Jenkins. I've got an abandoned piece of luggage at gate 14, B concourse. K9 is showing interest. Requesting backup and supervisor. Copy that, Jenkins. Units en route. ETA 3 minutes. 3 minutes felt like an eternity when Max was acting like this. She approached cautiously, keeping Max on a short leash as they moved closer to the blue suitcase. Standard procedure for explosive detection was clear. Max should sit when he identified the target scent. A calm, controlled sit that signaled danger without creating panic. Max had performed that sit perfectly for 18 months straight, through countless training exercises, through 3 real-world explosive detections, through certification tests that he'd passed with flying colors. But he wasn't sitting now. 20 feet from the suitcase, Max's entire demeanor changed. The anxious whine escalated into sharp, desperate barks. His legs tensed, muscles coiling like springs ready to release. Max, sit. Sarah commanded, her voice firm and authoritative. He ignored her completely. 15 feet away, and Max was pulling so hard the leash cut into Sarah's palm. His claws scraped frantically against the polished floor, searching for traction. The sound echoed through the gate area, drawing attention from every passenger nearby. What's wrong with that dog? Someone muttered. Should we move away? A woman asked, clutching her daughter's hand. 10 feet from the suitcase, and Max's training shattered completely. He lunged forward with such explosive force that Sarah nearly lost her grip on the leash. The professional, disciplined K9 officer she'd trained disappeared, replaced by something primal, something desperate. Max's teeth bared as he threw himself toward the blue suitcase, his barks turning into something Sarah could only describe as screams. Max no. He didn't stop. He couldn't stop. His front paws hit the suitcase first, scratching at the hard shell with enough force to leave white marks on the blue surface. His nose pressed into the zipper seam, sniffing frantically, his whole body trembling. Then came the teeth. Max bit down on the zipper pull, yanking it with his powerful jaws. The metal scraped against his teeth, but he didn't care. He pulled and twisted, trying desperately to open the case. Sarah had never seen him like this. Not during narcotics training. Not during aggression drills. Not even during the live explosive scenarios that were designed to push K-9 units to their limits. This wasn't training overriding instinct. This was instinct obliterating training. "Jenkins, what's the situation?" Officer Danielle's voice came through her radio as he jogged toward them, two other officers flanking him. "I don't know," Sarah admitted, her voice tight. "Max is. He's not following protocol. He's not sitting. He's trying to open the bag." Danielle's hand moved to his sidearm instinctively. "Pull him back. We need to evacuate and wait for bomb squad." Sarah tried. She pulled hard on the leash, using her body weight to create distance between Max and the suitcase. But the German Shepherd fought against her with everything he had, his claws leaving scratch marks on the floor as she dragged him backward. The moment she created even 2 feet of space, Max lunged again, barking with such intensity that several passengers near gate 14 grabbed their bags and started moving away. "Max, heel." Nothing. Her commands meant nothing to him now. Because whatever was in that blue suitcase wasn't an explosive. It wasn't narcotics. It wasn't anything Max had been trained to detect. It was something dying. And every fiber of Max's being was screaming that they were running out of time. "Jenkins, pull that animal back now." Lieutenant Morris's voice cut through the chaos like a whip crack. He strode toward gate 14 with the rigid authority of a man who'd spent 30 years following protocol to the letter. Behind him, 3 more officers formed a perimeter, ushering confused passengers away from the area. Sarah tightened her grip on Max's leash, but the German Shepherd was beyond control. His teeth scraped against the suitcase's hard shell, trying to find purchase on the zipper. Foam flecked at the corners of his mouth. His eyes were wild, desperate. "Sir, something's wrong," Sarah said, her voice strained from the effort of restraining Max. "He's not giving the explosive alert. This is different." "I don't care what it is," Morris snapped, his face reddening. "We have an abandoned bag and a dog going crazy. That's textbook bomb squad territory. Pull him back and secure the area." "Lieutenant, listen to me." "That's an order, Officer Jenkins." Sarah managed to drag Max back 5 feet, her arms burning from the effort. The moment she stopped pulling, Max surged forward again, nearly ripping the leash from her hands. His barks had become continuous, frantic, each one more desperate than the last. Morris keyed his radio. "Dispatch, we need bomb squad at gate 14, be concourse. We're evacuating a 100-foot radius. ETA on specialists." The radio crackled. "Bomb squad is 20 minutes out, Lieutenant. They're coming from the training facility across town." 20 minutes. Sarah's stomach dropped. She looked at Max, really looked at him. His behavior wasn't fear. It wasn't aggression. It was desperation. The kind of desperation that came when every second mattered. She'd seen Max detect explosives 3 times in their 5 years together. Each time, he'd sat calmly, professionally, waiting for her next command. She'd seen him find hidden narcotics dozens of times. Always controlled. Always disciplined. This was neither. "Lieutenant, I don't think we have 20 minutes, Sarah said, her voice urgent. Morris's jaw clenched. "Jenkins, I've been doing this job since before you were born. We wait for bomb squad. That's the rule. That's how we keep people safe." "But Max is a dog," Morris interrupted. "A well-trained dog, but still a dog. He could be reacting to anything. Food. Another animal. Hell, for all we know, someone packed their lunch meat in there, and it's gone bad." Max's whining reached a pitch Sarah had never heard before. It wasn't the sound of a dog detecting contraband. It was the sound of a dog hearing something die. "Sir, please. Look at him. Really look at him." Morris did. For just a moment, his expression flickered with uncertainty. Max had stopped trying to bite the suitcase. Instead, he was pawing at it frantically, whimpering between barks, his nose pressed against the seam where the two halves met. Then Morris's face hardened again. 20 minutes, Jenkins. We can wait 20 minutes. Secure your animal and help establish the perimeter." Sarah's mind raced. 20 minutes for bomb squad to arrive. Maybe another 5 to assess the situation. Another 10 to carefully open the bag if they determined it was safe. 35 minutes total. She looked at Max. At the way his entire body trembled. At the desperation in his eyes as he clawed at the suitcase. Whatever was in there didn't have 35 minutes. Sarah Jenkins had always followed the rules. She'd built her career on discipline, on procedure, on doing exactly what she was told. But Max had never been wrong. Not once in 5 years. And the rule book didn't account for what to do when your partner, the one who'd never led you astray, was telling you that someone was dying right in front of you. She had a choice to make. And she had to make it now. Sarah's hand trembled as it hovered over the zipper pull. Jenkins, step away from that bag. Morris's voice thundered behind her. That's a direct order. She dropped Max's leash 30 seconds ago. The moment she'd made her decision, the moment she'd chosen to trust 5 years of partnership over 30 years of someone else's protocol. Max stood beside the suitcase now, his nose pressed against the seam, whimpering softly as if trying to tell her, "Hurry, please hurry. Officer Jenkins, if you open that bag, you will be suspended pending investigation. Do you understand me?" Sarah understood perfectly. She understood that her career might end in the next 10 seconds. She understood that if she was wrong, if this was an explosive, if Max had somehow malfunctioned, if she'd misread everything, people could die. But she also understood that Max had never been wrong. Not once. Not ever. "I'm sorry, sir," Sarah said quietly, her fingers closing around the zipper pull. "I can't wait." "Jenkins." She pulled. The zipper separated with that distinctive metallic sound. The two halves of the hardshell case parting slowly as Sarah's hands worked the pull around the entire perimeter. Max's barking stopped instantly, replaced by an anxious whine as he watched her work. Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs. Her breath came in short gasps. Every instinct screamed that this could be the last thing she ever did. The zipper reached its starting point. The case was unsealed. Sarah lifted the lid. Time stopped. Inside the navy blue suitcase, curled in a tight fetal position, was a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 3 years old. Blonde hair matted against her small face. Pink polka-dot pajamas twisted around her tiny frame. In her arms, clutched tight against her chest, was a worn brown teddy bear with button eyes. The child wasn't moving. "Oh my God," Sarah breathed, her voice breaking. She dropped to her knees, her training overriding the shock. Her fingers went immediately to the girl's neck, searching for a pulse. The skin was warm. Thank God, it was warm. But the pulse was there, faint and rapid, threading weakly beneath Sarah's fingertips. "We need paramedics at gate 14 right now," Sarah shouted, her voice cracking with urgency. Child found in luggage, approximately 3 years old, unconscious, breathing is shallow. Max pressed his nose against the little girl's hand, whining softly. His tail wagged once, tentatively, as if asking, "Did I do good? Did I save her?" Behind Sarah, she heard Lieutenant Morris on his radio, his voice shaken. "Cancel bomb squad. Get EMS to gate 14 immediately. We have a child. Suspected kidnapping." Sarah carefully lifted the girl from the suitcase, cradling her small body against her chest. The child's lips had a bluish tint. Oxygen deprivation. How long had she been in there? How long had she been sealed inside that case, unable to breathe? "Come on, sweetheart," Sarah whispered, adjusting the girl's position to open her airway. "Stay with me. You're safe now. You're safe." The girl's chest rose and fell in shallow, irregular breaths. Her eyelids fluttered but didn't open. Officer Daniels appeared beside Sarah, his face pale. "Jesus Christ. Is she?" "She's alive," Sarah said firmly, as if saying it would make it more true. "She's alive, and she's going to stay that way." Max sat beside them, his body finally calm, his dark eyes fixed on the little girl in the pink polka-dot pajamas. He'd known. Somehow he'd known. And because Sarah had trusted him, because she'd chosen her partner over protocol, this child had a chance. In the distance, sirens wailed, growing closer with every second. Sarah knelt on the cold terminal floor, the little girl cradled in her lap, her fingers never leaving the child's neck. The pulse was there, weak and thready, fluttering like a trapped bird beneath her fingertips, but it was there. How long until EMS? Sarah called out, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her chest. 2 minutes, Daniels responded, his radio pressed to his ear. They're coming in through the employee entrance. 2 minutes. 120 seconds. Sarah counted each heartbeat beneath her fingers, willing them to continue, to strengthen, to prove that they weren't too late. The little girl's chest rose and fell in irregular patterns. Her lips were still tinged blue, her skin pale except for the fever-bright flush on her cheeks. Sarah adjusted her position slightly, keeping the girl's airway open, supporting her head. "Talk to me, Jenkins. What's her status?" Lieutenant Morris crouched beside them, his earlier anger replaced by grim focus. Whatever disciplinary action awaited Sarah later didn't matter now. Right now, there was only this child. Pulse is weak and thready, approximately 140 beats per minute. Respirations are shallow, maybe 8 to 10 per minute. Skin is warm to touch, but extremities are cool. Signs of oxygen deprivation. Sarah's training kicked in, her voice clinical even as her hands trembled. She needs oxygen. Now. Officer Daniels appeared with a first aid kit, flipping it open. "We've got an oxygen mask, pediatric size." Sarah shook her head. "Not until EMS arrives. If I place it wrong with her breathing this shallow, I could do more harm than good." Max hadn't moved from his position beside them. He sat perfectly still now, his eyes fixed on the little girl, occasionally whining softly. His nose twitched toward her small hand, the one still clutching the brown teddy bear. "Good boy, Max," Sarah whispered. "You did so good." Morris stood, directing other officers to maintain the perimeter. "Get airport security footage from the last 4 hours. Every camera angle on this concourse. And someone find out what flight was boarding at this gate. If someone left this bag here, they might still be in the terminal." Sarah barely heard him. Her entire world had narrowed to the fragile pulse beneath her fingers and the shallow rise and fall of the child's chest. "Come on, sweetheart," she murmured, smoothing the matted blonde hair away from the girl's face. "Stay with me. Just a little longer." The child's eyelids fluttered. For a moment, just a moment, Sarah thought she might open her eyes. But then they stilled again, and the already shallow breathing seemed to slow even more. "Where are those paramedics?" Sarah's voice cracked with urgency. 30 seconds out, Daniels confirmed. Sarah could hear them now, the sound of running feet, the rattle of equipment, voices calling out commands. The crowd of travelers that had gathered at a safe distance parted as 2 EMTs burst through, a gurney and medical bags in tow. 3-year-old female, found sealed in luggage, Sarah reported immediately as they dropped beside her. Weak and thready pulse, shallow respirations, cyanotic lips, possible oxygen deprivation. Unknown how long she was in the case. The first EMT, a woman with kind eyes and quick hands, gently took the child from Sarah's arms. "We've got her. Good job, officer." Sarah's arms felt empty as the little girl was transferred to the gurney. The second EMT already had the pediatric oxygen mask ready, securing it over the child's small face while his partner checked vitals. "Pulse ox at 84%, the female EMT called out. "Starting high-flow oxygen. We need to move." They lifted the gurney, wheels clicking as they locked into place. The little girl looked even smaller now, surrounded by medical equipment, the oxygen mask covering half her face. The brown teddy bear lay on her chest, still held loosely in her small hand. Max whined as they wheeled her away, his ears dropping. Sarah stood on shaking legs, watching the EMTs rush toward the exit. Her uniform was wrinkled from kneeling. Her hands were trembling. And somewhere in the terminal, a monster who'd sealed a child in a suitcase was still walking free. Sarah stared at the empty suitcase, her mind racing. The pink polka dot pajamas. The teddy bear. The blue hardshell case itself. Every piece was evidence. Every detail could lead them to whoever did this. "Jenkins," Officer Daniels called from where he was photographing the scene. "You need to see this." Sarah crossed to him, Max following close at her heels. Daniels held up a clear evidence bag. Inside was the brown teddy bear, the one that had been clutched in the little girl's arms. "Look at the tag," Daniels said, turning the bag so she could see. Sewn into the bear's seam was a small fabric tag, the kind that usually displayed the manufacturer's information. But this tag had been modified. Written in faded permanent marker was an address, 2847 Maple Street, and beneath it, a name, Chloe. "That's her name," Sarah breathed. "Chloe." Lieutenant Morris appeared beside them, his phone already to his ear. "Running the address now." He paused, listening. Confirmed. 2847 Maple Street. Residents of David and Jennifer Mitchell. Reported their 3-year-old daughter Chloe missing this morning at 6:15 a.m. The Amber Alert hasn't gone out yet. They were still processing the report. Sarah's jaw clenched. 6 hours. This child had been missing for 6 hours, and they'd only just found her by sheer luck. By Max's instincts. Get the security footage, Morris ordered. Every camera angle. Someone carried that suitcase through this terminal, and I want to know who. 20 minutes later, Sarah sat in the airport security office with Officer Garcia, the head of airport surveillance. 6 monitors displayed different angles of Gate 14 and the surrounding concourse. There, Garcia said, pointing to the timestamp, 7:23 a.m., that's when the suitcase appears. Sarah leaned forward. A figure in a gray hoodie walked through the frame, pulling the blue hardshell suitcase behind them. The hoodie was pulled low, obscuring most of their face. Dark jeans, white sneakers, average height and build. Could be anyone. Can you enhance the face? Sarah asked. Garcia shook his head. He knew where the cameras were. Never looked up once. Kept his head down the entire time. They watched as the man in the gray hoodie positioned the suitcase beside the row of chairs at Gate 14. He glanced around, quick, nervous movements, then simply walked away. No rushing. No suspicious behavior. Just another traveler leaving a bag. Wait, Sarah said, her pulse quickening. Go back. When he sets the bag down. Garcia rewound the footage. The man positioned the suitcase, and just before he turned away, his hand went to his pocket. He pulled out his phone, checked it, then slipped it back. There, Sarah pointed. His left hand. Zoom in. The image pixelated as Garcia enhanced it. On the man's left wrist was a distinctive tattoo, a black tribal design that wrapped around his forearm. That's our identifier, Sarah said. Print that. Circulate it to every officer in the terminal. Garcia switched cameras, tracking the man's movement. He goes to the bathroom here, stays for 3 minutes, then heads toward the taxi stands. Taxi stands, Sarah repeated, standing abruptly. He's leaving. Or he already left. Morris's voice crackled through her radio. All units, suspect description. Male, gray hoodie, dark jeans, white sneakers, tribal tattoo on left forearm. Last seen heading toward ground transportation. Consider armed and dangerous. This is an active kidnapping case. Sarah looked at Max, who'd been lying patiently beside her chair throughout the footage review. The moment she stood, he was on his feet, alert and ready. The taxi stands are on the lower level, Garcia said. If he left within the last hour, traffic cameras might have caught the cab. Or he's still here, Sarah said, clipping Max's leash. Waiting, watching to see if anyone discovered his package. Morris appeared in the doorway. Jenkins, take Max, canvass the ground transportation area. If this bastard is still in my airport, I want him found. Sarah was already moving. Max trotted beside her, his nose working the air. They had a description. They had a tattoo. They had security footage. Now they just needed to find the man who'd tried to murder a child. Sarah led Max back to Gate 14, to the spot where the blue suitcase had sat abandoned. The case itself was now sealed in evidence bags, being processed by the forensics team. But the scent remained. It always remained. Max, seek, Sarah commanded, gesturing to the area where the man in the gray hoodie had stood. Max's nose went immediately to the floor, sniffing in wide circular patterns. His tail was low but active, sweeping back and forth as he processed the complex layering of scents. Hundreds of people passed through this gate every day. Perfumes, colognes, coffee, food, cleaning chemicals. All of it mixed into an overwhelming cocktail that would confuse any normal dog. But Max wasn't any normal dog. His head snapped up after 30 seconds, ears forward, body rigid. He'd found it. The scent of the man who'd touched that suitcase. The scent of panic and sweat and desperation that no amount of cologne could mask. Max pulled forward, his nose tracking an invisible trail through the terminal. Sarah followed, keeping the leash loose enough to let him work, but short enough to maintain control. Officer Daniels jogged behind them, his hand resting on his radio. They moved past the gate seating area, through the corridor connecting the B and C concourses. Max's pace quickened, his nose sweeping left and right, but never losing the trail. Other travelers jumped aside as the K-9 unit barreled past, Sarah's voice calling out warnings. Police K-9 working. Please clear the path. Max led them to the men's restroom, the same one the security footage had shown. He paused at the entrance, nose working the air, then pushed through. Sarah followed him in. Airport police. Everyone out now. 2 businessmen at the sinks grabbed their bags and rushed out. Max was already moving past the stalls, past the urinals, to the far corner where paper towels littered the floor. He sniffed intensely at one section of wall, whining. "He changed here," Sarah said, noting the discarded gray fabric stuffed in the trash. "Ditch the hoodie." Max was already moving again, pulling her back out of the restroom and toward the escalators leading down to ground transportation. His pace was urgent now, the scent still fresh. This wasn't a cold trail. This was active. Recent. They descended the escalator at a near run, Sarah taking the steps 2 at a time while Max pulled ahead. Travelers pressed themselves against the railings, giving them space. At the bottom, Max veered sharply right, heading toward the automatic doors that led to the taxi stands. The scent was stronger here. The man had been nervous, rushing. Fear had a smell, and Max could taste it in the air. They burst through the automatic doors into the covered taxi area. The morning air was thick with exhaust fumes and the sound of idling engines. A line of yellow cabs stretched along the curb, drivers leaning against their vehicles, smoking, chatting, waiting for fares. Max's head swiveled, nose working overtime to sort through the overwhelming sensory assault. Gas fumes, cigarette smoke, hundreds of scents from thousands of travelers who'd passed through in the last hour. But then his body went rigid again. He'd locked onto something. Max pulled Sarah forward, past the first 3 taxis, past a shuttle bus loading passengers, straight to a sedan parked at the far end of the pickup zone. Not a taxi. A private rideshare vehicle. Dark blue Honda Civic, license plate partially obscured by mud. And leaning against the driver's side door, his phone pressed to his ear, was a man. No gray hoodie now, he wore a black t-shirt instead. But the tribal tattoo on his left forearm was clearly visible. Max's lips pulled back, a low growl rumbling in his chest. Sarah's hand went to her radio, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Suspect located. Ground transportation, East End. Need immediate backup. The man looked up. His eyes met Sarah's across 30 feet of concrete. And then he ran. "Max, take him." Sarah released the leash. Max exploded forward like a missile, his powerful legs eating up the distance between them and the fleeing suspect. The man had maybe a 3-second head start, but it wasn't enough. It would never be enough. The suspect sprinted toward the parking garage entrance, his white sneakers slapping against the pavement. He glanced back once, a fatal mistake that cost him precious speed, and his eyes went wide with terror as 80 pounds of German Shepherd closed in. Max hit him at full speed just as he reached the garage entrance. The impact drove the man to the ground, Max's jaws clamping onto his left forearm, the one with the tribal tattoo. The suspect screamed, trying to shake the dog off, but Max's training held. He maintained his grip, controlled but firm, pinning the man against the concrete. "Don't move," Sarah shouted, her weapon drawn as she closed the distance. "Police. Stay down." The man stopped struggling, his face pressed against the pavement, Max's teeth still embedded in his forearm. Daniels and 2 other officers arrived seconds later, weapons drawn, surrounding the suspect. "Max out," Sarah commanded. Max released immediately, backing up but maintaining his aggressive stance, ready to engage again if needed. Sarah holstered her weapon and pulled the man's arms behind his back, snapping handcuffs onto his wrists with practiced efficiency. "Marcus Webb," she read from his driver's license, pulled from his pocket. "You're under arrest for kidnapping, attempted murder, and child endangerment." Marcus Webb said nothing, his face pale, blood trickling from where Max had gripped his arm. 3 days later, Sarah stood outside room 347 at County General Hospital, Max sitting patiently beside her. Through the small window in the door, she could see Chloe Mitchell propped up in a hospital bed, oxygen tubes in her nose, her parents on either side of her. The little girl was awake now, talking quietly, her brown teddy bear clutched in her arms. The doctors said she'd make a full recovery. Another 10 minutes in that suitcase, they'd said, and the outcome would have been different. Another 10 minutes, and Max's desperate warnings would have come too late. The door opened. Jennifer Mitchell stepped out, her eyes red-rimmed but smiling. "Officer Jenkins?" "Yes, ma'am. Chloe's been asking about the dog. The big puppy who saved her. She says she remembers him barking." Jennifer's voice cracked. "Would it be okay if, could she meet him?" Sarah's throat tightened. "Of course." They entered the hospital room together. Chloe looked so small in the large bed, her blonde hair brushed and clean now, her cheeks pink with returning health. When she saw Max, her whole face lit up. "Puppy!" she exclaimed, her voice hoarse but excited. Sarah led Max to the bedside. "This is Max, sweetie." He's the one who found you. Max approached carefully, his tail wagging gently. He placed his head on the edge of the bed, and Chloe reached out with her small hand, running her fingers through his fur. "Good puppy," she whispered. "You saved me." Max's tail wagged harder. David Mitchell stood, extending his hand to Sarah. "We can never repay you for what you did, for trusting your instincts, for defying orders to save our daughter." Sarah shook his hand, then knelt beside Max. "I didn't save her, sir." Max did. "I just listened." Jennifer wiped her eyes. "They told us about Marcus Webb, that he was part of a trafficking ring, that Chloe was supposed to be." She couldn't finish the sentence. "He'll spend the rest of his life in prison," Sarah said quietly. "He gave up the names of everyone in his network. Your daughter's testimony helped break apart an organization that's been operating for years." Chloe giggled as Max licked her hand. The sound was pure and innocent, untouched by the horror she'd endured. Sarah stood, her hand resting on Max's head. They'd been cleared of any wrongdoing. Lieutenant Morris had even recommended Sarah for commendation. But none of that mattered as much as the little girl laughing in the hospital bed, alive and safe and whole. "Good boy, Max," Sarah whispered, scratching behind his ears. "The very best boy." Max looked up at her, his dark eyes warm and content. He'd known. He'd always known. And because Sarah had trusted him, Chloe Mitchell would grow up to see tomorrow. If you liked this video and want to see more just like it, then make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And I'm genuinely curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far these incredible stories reach.